before our install, we have to make a couple decisions on how we're gonna mount it and which microphone we're gonna use. The two options are the boomed mic here or the stick-on mic. Both options connect with the speakers here. So depending on which one you wanna use, you're gonna decide, get that hooked up, that's done. The next decision you're gonna have to make is which mount you wanna use. Do you wanna use the 3M adhesive sticky mount, or we have a clamp style mount here that comes with the hardware that you can then make it the right width for your helmet, and it assembles in a fashion like this, and then you're gonna be able to hook it between the outer shell of your helmet and the interior, and it'll hold it at a place like that. That's gonna be better for an application where you don't have a smooth mounting surface. But for our application today, we're gonna use the 3M adhesive mount. They work really well, and I think it's a little bit cleaner on most installs. So we're gonna push the clamp mount out of the way, we're gonna push the boom mic out of the way, and this is our whole kit now. For today's application, we're gonna be using the 3M adhesive sticky mount on the side of our helmet. That's not the right side. Here's the right side. So I've cleaned this area off with some rubbing alcohol. I've also preheated the adhesive a little bit with my handy dandy heat gun, which works really well for this adhesive. See if I can get it in place here. So when you use the adhesive mount, it works incredibly well, but the key is using a little bit of heat. So if I were using this as a permanent installation, I would go ahead and grab my heat gun and blast it with it a little bit longer, and then it would be good to go. The last one I had on here was about 3 months with no issues. So anyways, we have our base mounted on the helmet now. That way we can take our head unit, it clicks in to place there, but we're gonna set this aside for now because the next step is installing the speakers and the microphone. Every helmet's gonna be different as far as how difficult they are to get the cheek pads out and all that stuff. I'm gonna leave that up to you. The important part is that you are gonna have to get behind the cheek pads. Some helmets have built-in speaker pockets behind your ears, some don't. The speakers themselves have a couple different options on how they're gonna stick into your helmet. That's gonna come down to whatever helmet you have. On our helmet that we're using today, the Klim Krios, the best option I think is going to be the soft side of the hook and loop. So I'm actually gonna remove that and put it on here. So I'm taking my soft side of the adhesive, sticking that on there. There is a left side and a right side speaker. The way you're gonna be able to tell these bad boys apart is the left side speaker has a shorter cable and the right speaker has a longer cable because it's got to go farther away. So anyways, here's our plug that actually plugs into the head unit. We've got our microphone to the side here. It's our one prepped speaker. We're gonna go ahead, prep this other speaker while we're at it. Let's take that there. And like I said, different applications for different helmets. The kit also comes with two-sided hook and loop pads here that you can use to further space the speakers closer to your ears if you need, depending on the application. But anyways, our two speakers are now set up. This would be the left-hand speaker because it's got the shorter cable, and this is the right-hand speaker because it has the longer cable. So I'm gonna go ahead and fit this one in in the general vicinity of where I think it needs to go. You can fine tune that later. But I've got that one in place. Pop out a couple more pads here so I can get to the second speaker placement. And I'm not worrying about the cables right now. I'm gonna get my speakers in place and then I'm gonna tuck all my cables in nicely afterwards. So once I get my speakers both in the general area where I want them, I'm gonna start hiding a little bit of cable. Making sure that I don't get the cables crossed up here. These tucked back in here. And you're not gonna, behind the cheek pads and stuff, you're not gonna notice these cables when you put it on and off unless you do a very poor job of it. That. Here. This would also be a great opportunity to wash your cheek pads and helmet pads if you haven't done that. You should do that because they get pretty smelly. Anyways, now that we've got this pad back in, our left side pad we were able to do without removing the whole cheek. But while I've got this pad out here on this side, I'm gonna go ahead and put my microphone in place. Same thing with the microphone as with the speakers. Couple different options for how you're gonna stick this in place depending on whatever helmet you have. So for my application here, I've applied Velcro already to the chin here. So I'm just gonna set my microphone right on there. Important part with the microphone, you're gonna want it as close to your mouth as possible. That's for the noise canceling, but also just for clarity. As long as you have it in the general ballpark right now, it's fine. You can fine tune this afterwards. But now that we have the microphone in place, we can tuck this cable behind the cheek pad that I removed. Start working on that. The important part is the end of all the cables here is what's actually gonna plug into your head unit. So you wanna make sure when you're putting your cheek pads back into place that you leave enough slack on here that it's gonna reach. Okay, so once we get our cheek pad back into place here, then we can actually take our head unit, snap it into place. You can hear that affirming click. Then you're gonna take your end, plug it in there. So now we're just making sure that we've got the proper amount of slack. I can actually hide a little bit more of that, but it's important to verify before you button everything back up. Now I can get my cheek bed situated. And that's just about the perfect amount of slack you have there. I mean, you don't want a bunch sticking out so it could catch on anything, but this is enough that it's not gonna strain the wires. And when you're unplugging the unit and plugging it back in, when you're charging it or taking it off the helmet, you don't have to fight with it. So now you could dial in the exact placement of the speakers and the microphone by putting the helmet on, feeling where they're at, actually turning on the unit, turning on some tunes, and making sure the speakers are where you want them and the microphone's where you want it. And that none of the cables are gonna bother you in your helmet. But that is your crash course on how to install the new Adventure headset. It's pretty simple. You just gotta dig in, know your helmet a little bit and get it dialed in. But once you've done it once, it's done, it's good to go, and you're ready for adventure.